Yeah, well, welcome to this fireside chat. As a research director with IDC, I'm covering digital markets in Northern Europe, the IT industry, what's going on there, but also the outcomes of digitalization and digital transformation. So that's why this fireside chat with the title "Prepare, Don't Panic" is particularly interesting, and putting it into context with Mark's presentation this morning, I think it's really interesting that the majority of organizations are now describing themselves as working strategically with resiliency, and then touching upon that point, which Mark also positioned, the one about creating the minimal viable company or corporation. What does it take? The one thing that also board of directors and the C-suite need to think about when they're talking about resiliency. And to discuss this, how to build a resiliency or a resilient security posture from an organizational point of view, also from an infrastructure point of view. I'm joined by you, Ulrich Wisser. And Ulrich, welcome, first of all. And secondly, would you mind introducing yourself and then maybe talk a little bit about sort of the importance of what you're working with for real, the critical event management?
Yes, thank you, Jan. And yes, thank you everybody for being here. So my name is Ulrich Wisser. I work for the Everbridge as a strategic solutions architect. My background is, as I heard, I made an error in my in my career. I've been working as a developer for a very long time. But so I've been a developer, IT architect, and worked in technical standards, things like that, and now I work for Everbridge. And so at Everbridge, we do critical event management, which starts with, it could be a typhoon heading to your offices, could be some alarms about robbery, and we also do digital events managing, because all of that is somehow very critical to your enterprise. And obviously, I'm from the IT side, so I work mainly with the IT critical events. And there we see a large need for automation, as we heard before. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly. And well, for more than 20 years, and I think you might be understating this a bit. For more than 20 years, you have actually in Everbridge been working with this sort of holistic approach to 360
so Everbridge was founded after 9/11 because there was seen a need to have better communications in such an event. But of course, there's these one-off events, like you have this like 9/11, or you have like you're hit by ransomware. I mean, that it hopefully doesn't happen too often to you. But there's a lot of other events where you also need good communications, and that is what Everbridge can provide. Because a lot of feeling safe or being safe depends on communication, and depends on communication on all levels, not just I'm from the IT side. It's often like, oh, we need the right people on the right place to fix this solution, fix a firewall or something. But there's a lot more to it to make your organization work. You have to have communications. Your sales department need to know what they have to tell the customers, and all of that needs to be managed somehow. So, how do your management know how if this is a small IT event or a large one? All of that needs to be in this management of an event, and Everbridge can help with that. Yes, that's what we think about, because that is what makes your enterprise actually resilient, if you have a good handling of security events.
And exactly that level of communication and collaboration, of course, is key to actually managing critical events. But but you're also on a daily basis looking into sort of what you're calling the growing pressure here, and could you talk a bit about that growing pressure when we're talking about operations as well as security when it comes to IT resiliency?
Yes, so I think the pressure is, as we heard in the talk before, you have this continuous integration, continuous development. So you have to do stuff all the time. And then you have all these different environments. You have the cloud, on-prem, you have services, SaaS services that you employ. There's a lot going on. And so you have a different solution for your endpoint security, and you have a solution for your cloud security, and you have your solution for your network security. And you know, it goes on. You all know the tools you have at home, and I would say 25 is a very conservative estimate. You probably have more tools. And so now you have, suddenly it's like, well, these tools in itself are a problem because, you know, there's so much of them to manage. And I think that is a lot of, I mean, what we hear or what I see when I talk out there is like, oh, there's so much going on, we don't have time to automate. It's like, oh, we have coming in notifications all the time, we have all these events coming, we have to look at them. But it's like, you don't have enough people to look at them, but there's, you know, I mean, probably nobody of you has a queue of analysts outside of your door waiting to be hired. So you can't even throw more people at it because the people are not there. So what are you going to do? So I think we all see the need for automation. And I think that is something that we haven't seen so much in security before. And I think we need to improve in that part. Which parts are easy to automate? Which parts are good to automate? Which parts are hard to automate, but maybe more giving to automate?
And if we sort of drill a bit down into these building blocks, I mean, sort of to build this resiliency posture within the organization. Now we've started from sort of almost the cherry on the cake automation, but looking at, for instance, to integrate the handling of all notifications that you were talking about. That seems like a daunting task.
Yes. So it's, I mean, automation can mean a lot of things. I mean, you could say, oh, we automate the whole thing, but then obviously they have a huge task in front of you. So I would say what you usually would do is start with a very small bit. You know, like, okay, we have all these systems that send a notification. So let's try to have handle all these notifications in one platform, and so that there's only one place we have to look at it, and only one place where we have to click some buttons. So that makes it. Suddenly it's much easier to handle. Instead of learning 40 tools to where to click, you have to learn one tool where to click. That makes it a lot easier and can save you time and confusion and all of that. So already there you have a win for your organization if you take small steps. I mean, just think of just taking off 5 minutes from every incident you have, even the small ones. You just take 5 minutes. That suddenly gives you a lot of time. It's because, and if you, I mean, it depending on what industry you're in, but I mean, if you're an online reseller, for example, I mean, 5 minutes, you can actually put money on that. You know that if your website is down 5 minutes less, you earn more money. So, and I mean, that's true for everybody. It's just for others, it's a lot harder to put a value on it.
But getting there, of course, you need to understand and map these notifications. But you also need to sort of have the full view of your incident documentation, and I know the notifications are part of that. So can this really be fully automated?
A lot of stuff can be fully automated. I mean, let's face it. Let's say you have some service that goes down in the middle of the night. I mean, you wake your operator, they go to the data center, and what are they actually going to do? If it doesn't work, restart it, right? I mean, have you switched it off and on? And that's what they do. It works again, and they go home and sleep. And then the next morning, they're going to look at it. Well, turning off and turning it on, you actually can automate. I mean, that's not hard to automate. I mean, just so let the people sleep, let them fix the problem the next morning. I mean, already saves you a lot of money because, every incident in the middle of the night costs you money for your operators, but it all gives you a lot of, time for your people to work on it. And so you can just, take small wins instead of, looking at the whole cake. Just take a little bite and start from there.
And moving on in that direction, so that documentation takes you to a part where you're almost rigidly documenting, and then you're moving almost into the standardization, certification part of it. And I know you are working with certifications on exactly resiliency. Yes,
exactly. So once you're starting in that direction, then you suddenly have a trail of action that you did for your incidents. And a lot of industries are now going and having this compliance requirements in the EU, just, moved a lot of industries in the compliance direction. And even if you don't have compliance, you would like documentation for the next time it happens. You could go back and see what we did the last time. So, and it gives you a lot of it gives you this documentation and this that you can really improve your organization over time. And then once you have come to a place where you think you're comfortable, then you can go for certification so that you can, maybe there's best practices you could follow that would make you even better. And compare to your peers and things. That's what best practices are for. And I think that is an important part but you can't do that if you basically don't know what you're doing. It's like you're jumping in and, let's fix the problem, but you...
Yeah, and do you see that process, the process of certification? We're moving from actually mapping notifications into automating, and then now we are describing the documentation into sort of a standardization level. That process, is that the real foundation to ensure that you are resilient?
Yes, I think that is it makes you, you could be resilient without all of it, but you wouldn't know it. and so the part is like, are we resilient or not, is also a part of, yes, we know that we can do this. And how do we know that we can do it? Well, either it has happened to us or we have prepared for it. And so how do we prepare for it? Well, we have scenarios we look at, we document our actions, and we try to see if there's some holes in it. And that makes... And then suddenly we have this paper trail, and that's exactly what this is for, so that we are not only resilient, but we know that we're resilient, because that gives us lets us sleep at night.
Yeah, and an interesting point here also is because now we are within the organizations and different organizations, different industries, and so on, and when you're working with this, and this is also often a part when we talk about research into a lot of areas, we sort of divide between what we could call enterprises and public sector or government. And is there sort of a clear divide here when we're talking about the resiliency issue?
I think if you look at enterprises and public sector, they have different drivers for their actions, but they both need resiliency. If you look at an enterprise, it's mostly they're talking about costs. What is it going to cost us? In goodwill from customers, or in what is it in money? How much in time do we have to invest? But in public sector, it's a lot about the service they give. If meals on wheels are not arriving, people are actually going to starve out there. So it's like you have a different driver for your actions because you know that what you have to do, but the resiliency needs to be there in both cases. And so they have different challenges, I would say, because management works differently in public sector and in enterprises. But in the end, they both need to follow this trail and document their routines and going through all of this, because we've seen this I'm from Sweden, so I mean, we had cyber attacks on actually municipalities in this year, and it's really expensive, and it's really, really challenging, and it's really, you know, that, I mean, you have these patients out there, and you have to drive to all of them, and what do you do if you don't have a computer and you don't have addresses? So they need this exactly as any enterprise needs it.
So from that point of view, it comes down to there might be a more sort of rigid way within the government organizations that within the enterprise part of it.
Yes, exactly.
And so maybe also saying that, seen from an enterprise perspective, the next best steps might be easier to get along with.
Yes, yes. I mean, from an enterprise perspective, there's always this, we take the risk because it's too much money or something, but in the public sector, it's often that they can take the risk.
Yeah. One last question here. From your experience, do you see the discussion we have around skills and talent and so on as something that's an inhibitor or driver for this building resiliency by actually certification?
I would say it's a driver. I mean, you could say it's both because you don't have enough people to do it, but then it's also a driver because you don't have enough people, you need to do it. And then it's also a driver, you know, look at best practices, what others do, so you don't have to invent everything yourself, so it could save you a lot of time. And I think that is really important because, I mean, we're all time constrained, and so I think there is this where you really can take home this, and you need to build automation to free your time to really look at the important stuff, don't look at the menial stuff so much, and you need to, you know, look at best practices and to, you know, not invest so many hours in inventing something that others already have invented.
So would it be fair to say that automating these processes, establishing these building blocks in creating resiliency would enable you as a manager, leadership, but also in key functions in line of business to actually focus on the risk management and what comes down to the outcome of digital?
Yes, I mean, it's for, you know, let's say the first line responders, it's like they don't have to look at the boring stuff any longer because the boring stuff is automated, and they look at the interesting stuff, which makes your job better, and you like to go there, and then you might want to keep it. And for the managers, you suddenly have documentation of how stuff is done. You see where your time goes, and so it's easier to see where you need to go and where you can take the next steps. And I think that is really the driver for this.
Excellent. Claude, Ulrich, thank you very much for coming here today, talking to us. Thank you very much for listening in, and ensure to visit Ulrich and the team from Everbridge at the expo area out here. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.